Welcome back. You're watching Nation Tonight. US President Joe Biden was interrupted by chants of ceasefire while speaking at a South Carolina church. Addressing the protesters, Biden said he understood their passion and that he has been quietly working with Israel to get out of Gaza. Take a look at what happened.
We shall know the truth, and the truth shall set us free. But the truth is under assault in America. As a consequence, so is our freedom, our democracy, our very country, because without the truth, there's no light. Without light, there's no path from this darkness.
If you really care about the lives lost here, then you should honor the lives lost and call for a ceasefire in Palestine. Ceasefire now! Ceasefire now! Ceasefire now!
That's all right. That's all right. That's all right. I understand their passion, and I've been quietly working with the Israeli government to get them to reduce and significantly get out of Gaza. I'm using all that I can to do that.
Comes, remember, after the United States has been supporting Israel in its war against Hamas financially and politically and internationally. And so the statement comes as a bit of a surprise. The US has also, remember, repeatedly said that it opposes a ceasefire and has done so in action as well at various UN votes. But many also believe that the Biden administration is drawing up plans for the US to respond to what they're increasingly concerned could expand from a war in Gaza to a wider, protracted regional conflict. So why did Biden make this statement, and what does it imply for the wider Israel-Hamas conflict? Let's understand this more on the broadcast. I'm joined by Col Dinny, defense expert, and former Ambassador Anil Trigunayath also joins us. Good evening, namaskar. Welcome to both you gentlemen. Ambassador Trigunayath, I'd like to start with you. What do you make of this statement? Was Biden catering to the gallery, playing to the gallery because there were chants of ceasefire, he was being heckled? Did he say that to sort of, satiate them, or did he actually mean the fact that the US is now looking towards drawing out a plan where Israel can get out of Gaza?
Firstly, I think that US is also equally beleaguered in this whole process. And they have the domestic compulsions and strategic compulsions to continue to support Netanyahu and his continued war, which is leading to a large number of casualties. But at the same time, let us not forget that Biden is also going to face an election, and therefore he needs to cater to those dissenting voices who do not agree with the policies of his country, which is the standing between peace and continued war and casualties. And so therefore, United States for quite some time. And in fact, as we talk now, we know that Secretary Blinken is here in Israel for the fourth time. And he met President Herzog as well as Netanyahu and tried to talk to them because the threats of this war expanding beyond the borders of Gaza is quite real now. And once that happens, then it will be beyond United States to be able to control the conflagration. And that's another reason that United States wants it. Secondly, there is also a question of what happens to Gaza after this. There may be a decimated Hamas, which will not be destroyed as of now. But there are internal dissent, internal issues, domestic discord, which is happening even in Israel as the things are panning out. People are still waiting for 130 odd people to come out of the clutches of Hamas, who are hostages there. And therefore, this is a mix of a situation where even though Netanyahu would like to continue with this war, because of the kind of his domestic compulsions
Hmm.
and his own, I would say, uh, the promise that he gave that he's going to destroy Hamas. But at the same time, I think the reality strikes everyone
Hmm.
that without the US support now, it will be impossible for Israel to continue, even though they will continue to make such statements. So I think the United States also is wanting to
Hmm.
find a way out in which Israel's security is not compromised,
Yeah.
but at the same time, the more mayhem does not continue.
Hmm. Colonel Dinny, Netanyahu has in the past also said that whether or not they get international support, they will continue to attack Hamas and end Hamas, so to say. But in your opinion, has Israel been able to weaken Hamas enough to win the war?
Ma'am, I think what idea for the Israeli Defense Forces have definitely done is that they have at least done substantial damage to the war fighting or the operational aspects of Hamas. But to say that they have the initial objectives which they had was to destroy Hamas, that has not happened. So even the words which the IDF themselves have used is that they have now moving away from the northern Gaza, where they have fairly been able to control that particular combat zone. So they are nowhere they have used the word of destruction. They have used the word dismantling of terror infrastructure. So there is a difference between dismantling and destruction. So if you ask me a straightforward question that has Hamas been destroyed or no, they have not. But definitely a lot of casualties have happened to the Hamas. I believe that there are 12, two brigade size, which is about 12 battalions of this of Hamas, has been rendered as leadership without any leadership. So basically, they are not able to fight in a cohesive manner. So they have moved to central and southern part of Gaza, and that is where the operations are now being focused on. So overall, I would say that Israel has created substantial kind of problems for Hamas, but they are still fighting back. They're still fighting back, and that is why we hear about the casualties happening on the Israeli front also. So I think Israel has lot of work to do
Hmm.
in the sense of attaining their objective which they had placed for themselves. So that is where I think what today's president's
Hmm.
statement, I see it in the form of like you can see it this way. Israel, when they started this war, I am not very sure they had an exit strategy. But the US always had an exit strategy when
Hmm.
even just after the war had started, because from there itself, if you see, the president and the officials were very clear that Gaza will not be occupied by Israelis. Gaza cannot be under
Yeah.
operations forever. So these kind of comments were coming even then. Like now, today it's almost 95th day of the operations. So I think US was pretty keen that Israel should finish the operations as fast as possible and move out. So that is, I think, today the president has just once again reiterated that. And as the ambassador mentioned, the reasons are many, because in an election year, I don't think President Biden wants to see an escalation
Hmm.
happening along the Lebanon front with Israel, and even the Houthis also are targeting Israel. So he doesn't want an escalation there. And secondly, the rising casualties, man, that is another cause
Yeah.
of concern. No matter how we look at it, 23,000 civilians have died in Gaza. So that also, I think, a lot of pressure is coming on US. So for them, to that also, to that extent, they want the war to finish as fast as possible and to, as is in his own way, move out of Gaza. And third, of course, they're handling two
Hmm.
different
Hmm.
countries
Hmm.
fighting two different wars. One is Ukraine against Russia, and here Israel against Hamas. So it becomes slightly more complicated in terms of financial issues and also the defense and production and such like things. So all in all, I think it is in the US interest that Israel moves out of Gaza as fast as possible.
Yeah, which is also, quite interesting, Ambassador Trigunayat. Like Colonel Dinny mentioned, that there are two wars that are going on. One, of course, the Russia-Ukraine conflict, and now the Israel-Hamas war. You see that, the United States supported Ukraine and Israel in these two wars. And then suddenly there is this, eventual slowing down and toning down of support, or at least that's what is shown, whether it's the arms and ammunition that is provided, or the financial aid that is provided, or the support. A few weeks back, President Biden had said that globally support for Israel is reducing, to which Netanyahu had said that, despite all of that, we will still go ahead and take action against Hamas. So the US really, starting off with strongly supporting countries in war and then suddenly toning down because, there are concerns back home, there are concerns around the regional conflicts that might arise.
You see, Shreya, we need to look at it in a different perspective. United States is a country of lobbies, and the lobbies govern their foreign policy. As far as the Israel policy is concerned, it is governed mainly by the Jewish lobby, which is the strongest in the United States. And when a question of survival or existence of Israel comes, all the Jews get together, and they're a very powerful lobby. At the same time, as far as the Russia Ukraine war is concerned, it is more or less the military industrial complex and the superpower competition. That is what has been dictating that war. But the United States did not think in the beginning that with all the support that is coming from US, from the Western countries, from the European countries and others, that Russia could last this war for 2 years or more. With this, they were also hoping at the same time, like the Russian miscalculation, that they'll be able to bring Russia to the strategic defeat, as they were so to say. But that did not happen. In fact, this Israeli war, which happened without a real warning, although it was expected by those who were reading the writing on the wall very much, the fact remains is that this has distracted the United States from the Russia-Ukraine war, which is quite amply clear from the statements made by Zelensky himself, that he's losing this war because he's not getting the kind of support. And United States has $34 trillion of debts. Their own companies that are manufacturing defense supplies are clearly mentioning that it will take them 6, 7 months or more to essentially recoup that
Hmm.
or to come to that level of productions. Ammunition supplies are always in a limited context. You can fight a war for not more than a year, more than a month, active war.
Hmm.
So therefore, this is a very peculiar situation that they have got into, and even the United States domestic population, Americans, are not keen on any kind of war going on at this moment when they are going to face difficulties at home also. You know, the situation in Europe is already quite troubling. So these wars are actually costing a great deal
Yeah.
to these two countries as well, the continents, the Americans as well as the. And apart from the fact that the US is also losing a great deal of goodwill that it had tried to generate in the way in West Asia and the Middle East and elsewhere. The global south is standing virtually in contrast to the US policies on both these issues. So I think that overall,
Hmm.
in my view, US is a big loser in this whole game. Forget about Israel or the others. But the main loser in this game is going to be the United States, at least perceptionally.
Hmm. Okay, Colonel Dinny, do you actually think that this will expand to a wider regional conflict? The fact that a short while back there was attack on Syria, and US, of course, would be concerned on such regional conflicts arising and expanding also.
Oh, absolutely, ma'am. See, when what happens is when there are forces in close proximity for a long duration, the nature of operations can go into any manner. So that is where this criticality comes here, and there are forces in close proximity. Of course, there is a war happening in Israel and between Hamas, and also between Lebanon, Hezbollah, and Israel. So that also is it's a serious thing which is happening there, and the level of escalation there is also remarkable in the sense that earlier the attacks used to be about 3 to 4 kilometers within the border. Now the attacks, the air attacks and all have almost reached 10 kilometers within Lebanon and even towards Israel side. So and also Israel has been able to kill the one of the top leaders of Hezbollah. So the gradual escalation you can see, and it just requires another level of escalation, and it will be into a full blown war. So that is where then there is a whole lot of being played by Iran. So where does it stop then? So that is why I think US knows that this is a very serious issue, and I think even Antony Blinken, in his own words, he says it's a very serious situation as he comes for his fourth visit. So they understand that there is a serious chances
Yeah.
of escalation going, and that too going out of control, because once it starts, nobody knows what kind of weapons will be
Yeah.
used, where all it will be targeted, and all those kind of things are there. So that is why I think if it can be stopped now, it will be in the best interest of everyone, including the US. But if it is led to ferment and further escalation happens, we will never know from it'll into what level and what level of violence we'll be seeing.
Yeah. Okay. We'll leave it there. Col Dinny and Ambassador Anil Trigunaya, thank you very much, gentlemen, for joining us on the broadcast and sharing your perspective on this latest statement that US President Joe Biden has given. Thank you so much.